If your favorite romances are dark, addictive, and just a little bit dangerous, let me recommend The Dare by New York Times bestselling author Harley LaRue.
This viral novella serves as the perfect introduction to Harley's bestselling Losers universe. Jessica was the untouchable prom queen. Manson was the outcast she made sure everyone feared. Years later, one Halloween party, one game of Drink or Dare, and one impossible challenge forced them into a night that changes everything they thought they knew about each other.
If you love bully romances, enemies to lover tension, morally complicated characters, queer representation, and stories that aren't afraid to explore the darker side of desire and devotion, this one's for you.
This gorgeous new edition also includes a full gold foil cover and an exclusive bonus novella, Ghosted, available in print for the very first time. Fun fact, The Dare became infamous after Amazon temporarily banned it for being too sexy, helping cement Harley LaRue as one of dark romance's most talked about voices.
The Dare by Harley LaRue, available now wherever books are sold.
People keep asking what's the next book they need to read, and the answer is very simple. It's Storm of Secrets and Sorrow by Melissa K. Rorick.
In a world created for the descendants of gods, where the Fae are born to serve, a woman bound to the air of death fights fate and desire. Storm of Secrets and Sorrow is book 2 of the best-selling BookTok sensation, a contemporary dark romantasy legacy series for fans of Sarah J. Maas, Kaylee Smith, and Rebecca Yarros.
The second I knew that this book had me was when I realized it had gods, dragons, shifters, vampires, and witches. It has it all for you.
It even has my favorite tropes like morally gray characters, meddling gods, forced proximity, touch her or him and die, one bed, one horse, he falls first, enemies with benefits, like you can't go wrong.
And everyone knows that it is fantastic because the first book was independently published back in 2023, and the series was a #1 Amazon bestseller with nearly 40,000 Goodread reviews and 16,000 Amazon reviews as of 2025. So you know it's grown even more.
And when it was published traditionally, it was an instant New York Times bestseller.
Make sure you get your copy today of Storms of Secrets and Sorrow. It has an incredible deluxe special edition with stenciled edges, a beautiful foil-stamped hardcover, exclusive design with illustrated end papers, and full-color character art.
You can find Storm of Secrets and Sorrow by Melissa K. Rorick wherever books are sold in print and in ebook.
I recently discovered 11 Reader because a fun fact about me that a lot of people don't know is that I have a reading disability. I have always struggled with reading and concentration, and when it comes to things like PDFs or things that I really need to focus on, 11 Reader has really come in handy.
The fact that I can upload my own content, I have so many business memos I have to read every day.
And then it reads it to you, and you get to choose the voice that reads it to you. You get to have a British accent reading those documents to you.
And I just retain so much more.
I really love the voices. Having a British accent whisper sweet nothings about legal documents to me keeps me going.
Start free with 10 hours of your own content per month. And that's essentially a 400-page book turned into audio for free.
Upgrade to Ultra for $11 a month and unlock unlimited uploads plus 20 hours of premium audiobooks every month. No credits, no commitments. It's really the ultimate listening app when you can't get enough. Being able to retain information is really hard for me when I'm reading certain difficult documents. And I really can't emphasize enough to you guys how much 11 Reader has helped me review so many things for the podcast.
Whether you're writing your own book, you have a lot of documents to go through, or you want to listen to audiobooks, choose 11 Reader and use promo code podcast to get your first 2 months for only $1.
Welcome to Academia Unlocked, a special series from BookTok for BookTok where we take one classic work and explore it through 3 episodes, moving from understanding the text to deep analysis and finally cultural interpretation. This is Jack.
And I'm Amy. And between us, we have over 13 years of academic literary training, including bachelor's degrees in creative writing as well as master's degrees. We built this series to bring the depth we learned in our training into a space that feels like a conversation anyone can participate in.
Each book gets 3 episodes, and they build on each other. We start with literary literacy, reading the work the way you would in high school AP English class, close and careful. Episode 2 is our advanced analysis, where we shift into a college-level seminar lens. Finally, in episode 3, we look at the book in media, adaptations, cultural legacy, and how it translates beyond the page.
Today, we're actually going to talk about a nonfiction essay by Virginia Woolf titled A Room of One's Own. So we're going to stick to our 2-episode format instead of a 3-episode format, unless we really want to talk about critics. So if you've not read A Room of One's Own, we will talk a little bit about what it is, how it came to be. If you'd like to listen to it, it is a free audiobook on Spotify. It's about 4 hours if you listen at one speed. Highly, highly recommend.
I think you have to pay a membership to be on Spotify.
Oh, you have to be part of
I'm sure it's on Libby, too.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I
say,
apologize. It is only on premium.
Yeah. This is your first time reading this.
Mm-hmm.
And this is my multiple time reading this. And I loved it more now than I've always loved this essay. And I loved it so much more now and appreciated it so much more now. The reason why we got here is because you were like, I don't like Virginia Woolf. And I was like, really? And you go, actually, maybe I was listening to my male teacher who said that they don't like Virginia Woolf.
Well, I think it was more about I had a man teaching Virginia Woolf rather than a woman teaching Virginia Woolf, which we're going to get into, which is just that idea in and of itself is spoken about in this essay. It feels like a book. It is 6 chapters. It's 38,000 words.
Yeah.
It is so good. And so I thought about you the whole time when I was reading it, because you're like, angry baby feminist Jack. And I was like, yeah, I'm angry too. And it's all stuff that I already know, but it brought it even more harshly to light, because what it tells me is there's so much I take for granted that is a privilege I enjoy now that women did not have access to 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And it makes me mad. But I think this is such a good essay. It's based on 2 lectures that Virginia Woolf gave back in 1928, but you can read it as an essay. It might seem stream of consciousness. It might seem meandering, but it all has so much purpose.
Yes.
And it is the style that it's not direct in the way that you might expect a modern essay to be direct. It's not going to tell you what it's trying to tell you. It's going to paint pictures that are meant to help you see what Virginia Woolf is trying to illustrate.
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe it. She is very funny. I will acknowledge, though, if you're not accustomed to reading British literature from a certain time period, particularly late 1800s, early 1900s, it might be hard to digest. So that's why we're here. We're here to walk you through at a literacy level, what is this essay about and why was it important at the time? All right. So the question we're going to address in this episode is, what does Woolf say it actually takes for a woman to write fiction? And is the answer really just money? So for a little bit of background, Virginia Woolf was invited to talk about women in fiction, which can be interpreted in so many different ways. And for many people, the thesis is a woman needs a place of her own and money if she's going to be creative. So, Jack, why don't you identify the themes, and then we'll go into our first segment.
Yep. So themes that we're going to see in this episode includes material conditions of creativity, institutional exclusion, and the loss of archive of women's genius. I will also preface that this is built upon white feminism, which is very different than inclusive feminism. We will be inclusive as we can, but just know that we understand and recognize that this was written in a very exclusionary form of feminism, and that has been noted. We'll talk and include it as we will, but we are talking about Virginia Woolf's text.
Yeah. So the other thing that I think is important for context, because I didn't realize this when I first started reading it, Virginia Woolf is speaking to female students at a college, specifically Cambridge, the Women's College at Cambridge. And this is a new feature of Cambridge, right? Female students are just starting to be students in these colleges that are traditionally male. The first 75% of this, I thought she was talking to men. I was like, damn, girl. I'm surprised they let you keep talking. So I'm going to read the thesis that comes basically from the first paragraph of the novel in the first chapter, the essay. And I keep messing this up, and this will be a talking point for us, but like, what is this? Is this an essay? Is it a lecture? Is it fiction?
It's like a fiction, nonfiction essay. Weird thing.
Yeah.
It's fun. Yeah.
But also lecture. Yeah, it's an amalgamation. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, but I'm going to read this long excerpt. So stay with me. And Jack, feel free to interrupt if you think there's anything we need to explain. So this is the thesis. All I could do was to offer you an opinion about one minor point. A woman must have money in a room of her own if she is to write fiction. And that, as you will see, leaves the great problem of the true nature of woman and the true nature of fiction unsolved. I have shirked the duty of coming to a conclusion upon these two questions. Women and fiction remain. So as far as I'm concerned, unsolved problems. But in order to make some amends, I'm going to do what I can to show you how I arrived at this opinion about the room and the money. I am going to develop in your presence as fully and freely as I can the train of thought which led me to think about this. Perhaps if I lay bare the ideas, the prejudices that lie behind this statement, you will find that they have some bearing upon women and some upon fiction. At any rate, when a subject is highly controversial, and any question about sex is that, one cannot hope to tell the truth. One can only show how one came to hold whatever opinion one does hold. One can only give one's audience the chance of drawing their own conclusions as they observe the limitations, the prejudices, the idiosyncrasies of the speaker. Fiction here is likely to contain more truth than fact. Therefore, I propose making use of all the liberties and licenses of a novelist to tell you the story of the 2 days that preceded my coming here. How, bowed down by the weight of the subject which you have laid upon my shoulders, I pondered it and made it work in and out of my daily life. I need not say that what I am about to describe has no existence. Uxbridge is an invention, so is Fernham. I is only a convenient term for somebody who has no real being. Lies will flow from my lips, but there may perhaps be some truth mixed up with them. It is for you to seek out this truth and to decide whether any part of it is worth keeping.
Oof.
So she basically lays out what we tried to summarize earlier, which is she's going to paint a picture, and it is up to the reader or the listener to decide what is truth from the fiction she is telling. And later on, she goes to say, call me Mary Benton, Mary Seton, Mary Carmichael, or any other name. So she is pretending to be a fictional person as she gives this lecture. Why? Jack, why would Virginia Woolf refuse to speak as herself?
So many reasons. I mean, I think she says it right there in the beginning where you're never going to come to hope to speak the truth. You can only speak within the framing of fiction and guide people to a certain conclusion. And the setting of where she's giving this lecture allows us because it's set in the AP class framing, right? She has a thesis, she has evidence, she has counter arguments, and she has conclusion. But it's also not her, right? It's Mary Benton, it's Mary Senton, it's Mary Carmichael. Like, these are the women who are giving this conclusion, this thesis, this counter argument. And Woolf follows the structure, but she's in disguise and as these narrators, and the fact that it's disguised as a story of about 2 days in October. And you and I, Amy, have talked about this, how so often, especially in romantasy genres, you get so much told about these characters, but really it's a reflection on the reader. And the reader doesn't know that they're going through this own internal realization until maybe they never do. Maybe they don't know what's actually happening, but it allows a disconnect between the audience and feeling that they're being lectured.
Exactly. And I think it's easy for people to refute what another person views as fact. Well, that's just your perception, you're misinterpreting it, etc. Whereas with fiction is fact because it's all made up, right? So fiction you cannot refute because the writer is determining what the facts are as they write it.
Yeah.
And for that reason, we have this term in writing of this, and we've talked about it before, the suspension of disbelief.
Mm-hmm.
We remove ourselves from our disbelief because we understand that this is fiction. And that is why so many powerful novels have really important messages or truths within them, because it is the only way that we, as readers, can digest them without feeling attacked. Those truths are being played out through other characters. Now, the beginning of the novel sets out with Mary Carmichael, we'll call her, visiting this college, trying to go to a library. She has a meal at the men's college. She has a meal at the women's college. Before she even gets to the meals, because the meals are important, we're going to talk about the fact that for Mary Carmichael, the narrator, is like, oh, I have an idea. And she's pacing, she's walking on the grass because she's on an open campus, thinking about this idea. And a man comes up to her, waving aggressively, saying, you're a woman, you're not allowed to walk on the grass.
Yeah.
Only scholars, only men of the college are allowed to walk on the grass. A woman's place is on the gravel. Get your ass off the grass.
I experienced a variation of that.
Really?
It wasn't because I was a woman, but when I studied in Cambridge for a semester, like they had the fancy grass and you are absolutely, like they have a porter there who will regulate who's allowed to walk on the grass. And it's only once you've reached a certain level of scholar and graduation are you allowed to walk on the grass. So I befriended the porter and one night I rolled on that fucking grass.
Yeah, it's so funny. So she describes this man as a beadle, Beadle, which is traditionally a minor parish official who assists with ceremonial, ushering, or minor administrative duties. I thought she said beetle?
Yeah, me
like
too.
With a T? Because we're in California. I was like, she's describing him like a bug. It's appropriate. Anyway, moving on. So she's not allowed to walk on the grass. And she's like, fine, I won't walk on the grass. But now I've lost my train of thought. So fuck you. I'm going to the library. So Mary Carmichael, the narrator, attempts to go to the library at Oxbridge. But the librarians are like, no, you're not allowed to be here. You have to have a male chaperone with you. He has to be a scholar, or you have to have a letter of introduction and recommendation from a man. Otherwise, you are disgracing and cursing this sacred library.
This was less than 100 years ago.
This is less than 100 years ago.
I mean, 98 years currently
Still.
from when we're recording, but too soon, too recent.
Yeah. And then she gets sent away. So she's not even allowed to be in the library at this point.
So at this point, she gets sent away and she's just like, whatever, I'm hungry. I'm going to go eat. And at first she goes to the men's college and it goes for hours. And it's considered a wonderful time with wonderful food. And she's just like, oh my God, this is what the men are eating. Then the second meal is at the women's college, which is considered bland and dry. I'm going to read another excerpt we're going to be reading a lot from her essay. Quote, and was it for a guest, a stranger? For I had no more right here in Fernham than in Trinity or Somerville or Gritton or Newham or Christchurch to say the dinner was not good or to say we were now, Mary Senton and I, in her sitting room. Could we not have dined up here alone? For if I had said anything of the kind, I should have been prying and searching into the secret economics of a house, which to the stranger wears so fine a front of gaiety and courage. No one could say nothing of the sort. Indeed, conversation for a moment flagged, the human frame being what it is, heart, body, and brain all mixed together and not contained in a separate compartment as they will be no doubt in another million years. A good dinner is of great importance to good talk. One cannot think well, love well, sleep well, if one has not dined well.
Everyone breathe. We'll be right back.
I am trying to hit 10,000 steps a day and look cute and not have my back absolutely destroy me. And honestly, there's only one solution to this.
And that solution is Vionic shoes. I wear them every day to work so that I can walk on my walk pad looking professional, but the shoes also not look frumpy.
I mean, at this point, which Vionics do we not have? I am obsessed with my Walk Slim Slide sneakers. I can walk forever in them. And then if I'm like, you know what? I'm not vibing a sneaker. Boom. I can hop over to my Amelita Mary Jane flats. And suddenly I'm like this timeless, cool girl fashion icon.
I get so many compliments on my City Walk sneakers from all age groups. And genuinely, they are so cute and they're made with real suede.
The reason why we are so obsessed with our Vionics is because of Vionics' exclusive biomotion technology. And that's really what sets them apart. They began by revolutionizing medical orthotics. Today, they continue to use that science to engineer shoes that leave you feeling energized and confident all day.
They even offer a 30-day guarantee. Wear them, love them, or return them for a full refund within 30 days. I guarantee you'll know instantly that these are the shoes for you.
Use code BookTok, that's BookTok, BookTalk, at checkout for 15% off your entire order at VionicShoes.com when you log into your account. It's a one-time use only.
Vionic shoes, wearable well-being for your feet. So why does this matter? The 2 meals that Mary Carmichael experiences is really the entire argument Virginia Woolf is making in miniature. And more of the essay that we're not going to read aloud. Basically, what it talks about is the centuries of endowment. So what that is, and this is still true for universities and colleges today. It's my life every day. I live it. But men, merchants. I mean, for a long time, it was the clergy, it was royalty. But as colleges and universities became more secular and less related to the church, men who are successful, who have attended college, go back and donate money so that they can create chairs, which is basically funded positions for professors and lecturers. They create professorships, they create scholarships, they create basically funds of money that collect interest, that pay out dividends, that is used to fund the college. Men profit from this because men go out and make the money. Men donate the money. And then other men get to use the money. For institutions that have for centuries only benefited men, that is now allowing women to study there, to teach there, there's no money for the women because we could never allow the money donated by men to be used for women. And so the women's college, the meal that they are providing, is literally scraped together with whatever funds the women who are there have, because there are no women predecessors to have endowed their professorships, their lectureships, their scholarships. It just makes me so mad. Because again, we would disgrace the men who donated this money. They would never allow a woman to benefit from this money because that's not how it was done back in the day.
There's a great metaphor to be had also with this whole dining experience, right? I mean, ultimately the core of her topic, and, you know, I think there's an argument to be made about whether this is the true message of, you know, you have to have money. And that's true. Like, you have to have money in order to do anything. And you have to have money in order to dine well. Like, you want to go at life full force, you gotta eat, you gotta sleep, you gotta live somewhere. And if you don't have the money to do that, this is just another thing that's knocking you down and making it harder for you to thrive the way that the men thrive.
Right. And using food as metaphor here instead of women writing fiction is a great way for us to understand anybody who's listening. Yeah, we all understand that food is a basic necessity, but if you're not eating well, if you're not eating good food, how are you expected to thrive? You're surviving, you're not thriving.
Another random thing. So I went to Arizona State University for my bachelor's degree. I did a semester in Cambridge at St. Catherine's College, and then I did my master's in Queen Mary University of London. All of these places have like food that's provided in a way. At Arizona State, you kind of have like a bunch of food options, like Chick-fil-A, Chipotle, like, kind of like fast food that you can choose inside or choose from. At Queen Mary, when I went, it was almost like buffet style in a way where you have pizza you can choose from. Cambridge, they made the meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and it was fresh and it was in the back. Now, some of the students were just like, oh, like this isn't, the toast or whatever isn't like toasted to perfection.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, they made my eggs. They made it with real eggs. You guys, like this wasn't made from powder. And I like St. Cat's isn't even one of the nicer of the colleges there, but it was a very interesting experience to be in a university that is stepping back in time. And when I tell you, like, the food and dining experience in this like gorgeous dining hall was so different than any of the other universities I've been to.
And why is that? It's because in some way they understand if you want people to create knowledge, if you want people to learn, if you want them to have the big thoughts that change the world, you have to feed the brain.
It's the same thing with tech, like Google, Meta, like go to the facilities where the employees go to. It's corporate and they have gym. They have breakfast provided, lunch provided, dinner provided. They know this. This is a very well-known thing. You see it in modern day corporate environment as well.
If you want productivity out of people, you meet their needs. And this speaks to a concept now called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And at the bottom is the basics: food, security, shelter. If you meet those needs, people are able to function at a higher level. And, this is the kind of stuff I learned in college about like student success. How do you enable student success? Well, make sure they're not like experiencing food insecurity to start. Like they're not going to care about their academics if they're starving, if they don't have money.
And what a great way for Woolf to have done this, right? To say, rather than coming at the lecture and saying, you have to have your basic needs, you have to have everything met. And someone in the audience might be like, yeah, I got dinner, I got food, like it's fine. Yeah. This is a separate, removed story.
Exactly.
That is able to deliver the message.
Exactly. And it goes on from there because after these 2 meals, the narrator talks to her friend, who is a woman at the college, about like, well, damn, if only our mothers had made fortunes to leave to us so that we could endow colleges. But in this case, the friend who is at the college is like, well, my mother had 13 kids. So how the fuck was she going to make a fortune? Because one cannot make a fortune and have 13 children, at least not in the 1800s. I don't blame her. But the essay goes on to continue to argue, like, okay, even if her mother had decided to not have children and make a fortune, back then, the women who earned money, that money was the husband's property. So why would a woman earn money if it's just going to go to her husband? That's why you leave the business to the husband, so that they can, quite frankly, spitefully, I don't blame them. Like, if you're going to own everything, you can work for it. I don't want to work for it.
Absolutely. I'm not doing shit if you're going to do everything. You're going to own all of it. This has nothing to do with this specifically, but occasionally I'm going to throw in random facts just to like anger everyone. It's still illegal in several states or not illegal, like you can't just divorce your husband. You have to have a reason. You don't get to just say this isn't working. And even in California, if you're pregnant, you can't get a divorce immediately from your husband. You have to still have a waiting period. And that is why some men will get their partner pregnant on purpose, because then they can't divorce them. It's a form of control, which is why pro-choice matters so much.
Yep. I did not know this until my own brother and sister-in-law decided to separate. They live in Arkansas because that's where my brother works. And my sister-in-law was not allowed to divorce my brother. They had to separate legally for 18 months before they were allowed to file for divorce. What?
We're just throwing in these little tidbits of saying, hey, we're actually not that far ahead. Like, we're not as progressed as we might believe we are 100 years later. So let's continue. I'm just going to as these thoughts come in, I'm like, oh, by the way, this is actually still legal. Let's still shake things up.
So following these 2 meals, the narrator is like, well, this was all depressing. I'm going to try again tomorrow. And she goes to the British Museum, which apparently at the time was also a library. Is my sense. Didn't know that myself.
It's still a library.
I did not know that. I've only been to the part where it was a museum.
Yeah, no, it's not public now. It is
Yeah.
white as shit.
Yeah. But what the narrator experiences is like, well, I want to look up books about women in fiction. And instead, she finds titles by men about women, one being the inferiority of women, and many to that effect of just like looking at women as specimens rather than actually anything truthful to the female experience. So here's a passage that kind of sets this whole argument up that I think is so powerful. And we're going to call it the looking glass passage. Quote, "Women have served all these centuries as looking glasses, possessing the magic and delicious power of reflecting the figure of man at twice its natural size. Without that power, probably the earth would still be swamp and jungle. The glories of all our wars would be unknown. We should still be scratching the outlines of deer on the remains of mutton bones and bartering flints for sheepskins, or whatever simple ornament took our unsophisticated taste. Supermen and fingers of destiny would never have existed. The Tsar and the Kaiser would have never worn crowns or lost them. Whatever may be their use in civilized societies, mirrors are essential to all violent and heroic action. That is why Napoleon and Mussolini both insist so emphatically upon the inferiority of women. For if they were not inferior, they would cease to enlarge." By the way, Napoleon is short.
Yeah.
He has major short man syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
What is this saying? This is saying men need women so that men feel superior. What I love about her argument in this section is any comment men makes on women is actually them commenting on themselves. So if men say, well, women are inferior, what they're really saying is, well, I as a man am superior. She goes on to say that if there's any emotion in a man's writing, which there often is when it comes to women, then it cannot be fact. Fact is not emotional, but when men write about women, there is emotion. And so how can we trust it? Where is the truth?
Great argument. I think that's like something that you can still say today with any video or podcast of a man just, this is what's wrong with females. They just need to submit and this is what's going. It's like, look, you're saying this with a lot of emotion.
Mm-hmm.
The second there's emotion involved, you're not speaking facts.
Exactly.
Nothing pisses men off faster than women.
Yeah. And they call us the emotional ones.
I know.
There's so much in that section that is so good. I think if you walk away with anything, it's really about the fact that men have not allowed women to write about women. And what the fuck do they know about women? Nothing. Next, we're going to talk about Virginia Woolf's own circumstances and why it's important to her thesis.
Yeah. So it's very humbling when you realize how close Virginia Woolf was not being Virginia Woolf. That's something that you and I talked about a little bit earlier today, Amy. And the aunt's legacy is that she leaves Virginia Woolf her money. And Virginia now gets about £500 a year. And that £500 is exactly what she needs in order to live the life she wants, to write what she wants, and to fund her own creative and intellectual endeavors. And the aunt's legacy also arrives alongside the time of being able to vote. And it's an anchor. It's very symbolic of the two things happening at the same time. The news of the inheritance and suffrage reaches Virginia Woolf around the same time, ending on the fact that the money seems, quote, infinitely the more important than her own ability to vote.
Mm-hmm. Which says a lot.
Yeah. And I don't think that that's like something to dismiss. Like, I think that's something where you have to listen to her voice, who's living it at the time, and realizing that at the end of the day, money is what talks, right? So I'm going to read this other excerpt, quote, "The news of my legacy reached me one night about the same time that the act was passed that gave votes to women. The solicitor's letter fell into the postbox, and when I opened it, I found that she had left me £500 a year forever. Of the two, the vote and the money I own seemed infinitely the more important. Before that, I had made my living by caging odd jobs from newspapers, by reporting a donkey show here or a wedding there. I had earned a few pounds by addressing envelopes, reading to old ladies, making artificial flowers, teaching the alphabet to small children in kindergarten. Such were the chief occupations that were open to women before 1918. I need not, I'm afraid, describe in any detail the hardness of work, for you know perhaps women who have done it, nor the difficulty of living on the money when it was earned, for you may have tried. But what still remains with me as a worse infliction than either was the poison of fear and bitterness which those days bred in me. To begin with, always to be doing work that one did not wish to do, and to do it like a slave, flattering and fawning. Not always necessarily, perhaps, but it seemed necessary, and the stakes were too great to run risk. And then the thought of that one gift which was death to hide. A small one, but dear to the professor, perishing, and with it myself, my soul. All this became like a rust eating away the bottom of the spring, destroying the tree at its heart. However, as I say, my aunt died, and whenever I changed a 10-shilling note, a little of that rust and corrosion, it rubbed off, fear and bitterness go. That is so heavy to think about and so relevant today. And today we might call that food insecurity. And it's just, at the end of the day, having to pay bills, having to survive. And you can look at it as having to work odd jobs, having to survive, or having to go into your corporate job and making good money, but not as much money as your male counterpart, and having to provide 110% with a smile when your male counterpart doesn't have to do as much and doesn't have to have a performance alongside their own work. They don't have to smile like you do. And that echoes so strongly today as well.
Yeah.
A brief narrative pause. Stay with us.
It's basically August, which means it's basically fall. And I am basically thinking about my entire autumn wardrobe.
But it's not going to be a basic wardrobe.
No. It's going to have absolute amazing classic staples from Quince. That's going to have ultra soft organic cotton, premium cashmere sweaters. It's a whole vision I have for myself.
The best thing about Quince is you can get those timeless staples at 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
Quince also has, get ready for this, premium stretch denim starting at just $50. I mean, I'm telling you guys, like, it's the perfect fit. It has structure to it, and it also has exactly what you would expect from a luxury designer brand, but it's only $50.
And they're so affordable because they work directly with ethical factories and cut out middlemen. So basically, you're paying for quality, not brand markup.
And it's not just apparel. Quince also brings that same everyday elevation to everything they offer, from hotel quality bedding and bath to kitchen staples and thoughtfully designed furniture.
Upgrade your everyday. Download the Quince app for app-exclusive offers or go to quince.com/booktalk.
Get free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada and the UK too.
That's QUINCE.com/booktalk. BOOKTALK.
There will be absolutely no gatekeeping here. We need to tell you about Rebel, the one place where you can get some incredible brand names for up to 70% off.
The thing about Rebel is you don't have to choose between the brand you want versus the price you want. You get both. It isn't a knockoff. It's a real product just priced the way it actually should be.
Rebel offers so many incredible products that I have spent the last, I'd say, 20 minutes just scrolling, knowing that I can shop from brands like Ninja, KitchenAid, and even Drybar. My hair is going to look good.
The most important thing is it's not a static sale. There are new finds dropping constantly. And once the inventory's out, it's out.
You got to get on it, people.
Your next favorite find is waiting at FromRebel.com. That's FROMREBEL.com.
Top brands in home, baby, and outdoor. Up to 70% off. Go check it out before it's gone.
When I read this part, I felt it in my whole body because I'm near the end of a 2-week vacation and I'm so bitter about going back to work. And I feel that. For her, she's like, I was able to retrieve my soul because I can live the life I want without worrying about money, because money is now gifted to me. I have enough to meet my needs, and I have a life of leisure where I can do what I want with my time. I'm not trying to make ends meet. I'm not trying to survive. And that was more important to her than the right to vote. And quite frankly,
I get it.
I get that.
Yeah,
You get that.
There will always, kind of, money will always speak much louder. Voting is so important. I'm not saying let's give up our right to vote, but it just proves how tied women are at the mercy of the patriarchy and economy. So, yeah.
I just want to say before we go to the next segment, just financial independence, financial freedom. Like, imagine what that would mean for you, what that would mean for me. Like, I dream about financial freedom constantly. And I'm sure many people do. I do constantly feel like I'm not living my best life because I'm so concerned about money all the time.
It's heavy, but it also is, I think, relieving in a way to know that, like, we're not the only ones experiencing it. The fact that it echoes in history is, yes, it is a depressing thought, but it's also a thought of you're not in this alone. You're not the only one.
Yeah. And we certainly have it better than they did back then.
Yeah.
Although I wish inflation, yada, yada. I wish life was sustainable on 500 pounds a year.
At least your fiance doesn't have to be your roommate, your special roommate friend.
Yeah, that's true.
You're not
that's
two
true.
spinsters who decided to save money and live together.
Yeah, we're just friends who like cats. Let's take a sip.
Yeah. So the next section was one of my favorites back in college. And I thought it was such a wonderful thought experiment. It's with who she deems Judith Shakespeare. And essentially, Virginia Woolf says, well, what if Shakespeare had a sister? What if Shakespeare's sister had every bit of innate talent, but allowed to run with it the way that he was allowed to run with that talent? And this is what Virginia Woolf comes up with.
And before I read the excerpt, just some context, Virginia Woolf is trying to find texts about women, and there's basically nothing beyond a certain point, right? There's maybe a little bit in the 1700s, but in the Elizabethan era, fuck that. There was nothing from women. And the only mentions of women are how men have the right to beat their wives, basically, is that is an inherent right of a man, and that women were engaged at a young age and treated as property. So that's the context of what we're about to jump into. Quote, "Let me imagine, since facts are so hard to come by, what would have happened had Shakespeare had a wonderfully gifted sister called Judith. Let us say. Shakespeare himself went, very probably, his mother was an heiress, to the grammar school where he may have learnt Latin, Ovid, Virgil, and Horace, and the elements of grammar and logic. He was, it was well known, a wild boy who poached rabbits, perhaps shot a deer, and had, rather sooner than he should have done, to marry a woman in the neighborhood, who bore him a child rather quicker than was right. That escapade sent him to seek his fortune in London. He had, it seemed, a taste for the theater. He began by holding horses at the stage door. Very soon he got work in the theater, became a successful actor, and lived at the hub of the universe, meeting everybody, knowing everybody, practicing his art on the boards, exercising his wits in the streets, and even getting access to the palace of the queen. Meanwhile, his extraordinarily gifted sister, let us suppose, remained at home. She was as adventurous, as imaginative, as agog to see the world as he was. But she was not sent to school. She had no chance of learning grammar and logic, let alone of reading Horace and Virgil. She picked up a book now and then, one of her brothers perhaps, and read a few pages. But then her parents came in and told her to mend the stockings or mind the stew and not moon about with books and papers. They would have spoken sharply but kindly, for they were substantial people who knew the conditions of life for a woman and loved their daughter. Indeed, more likely than not, she was the apple of her father's eye. Perhaps she scribbled some pages up in an apple loft on the sly, but was careful to hide them or set fire to them. Soon, however, before she was out of her teens, she was to be betrothed to the son of a neighboring wool stapler. She cried out that marriage was hateful to her, and for that she was severely beaten by her father. Then he ceased to scold her. He begged her instead not to hurt him, not to shame him in this matter of her marriage. He would give her a chain of beads or a fine petticoat, he said, and there were tears in his eyes. How could she disobey him? How could she break his heart? The force of her own gift alone drove her to it. She made up a small parcel of her belongings, let herself down by a rope one summer's night, and took the road to London. She was not 17. The birds that sang in the hedge were not more musical than she was. She had the quickest fancy, a gift like her brother's for the tune of words. Like him, she had a taste for the theater. She stood at the stage door. She wanted to act, she said. Men laughed in her face. The manager, a fat, loose-lipped man, guffawed. He bellowed something about poodles dancing and women acting. No woman, he said, could possibly be an actress. He hinted, you can imagine what. She could get no training in her craft. Could she even seek her dinner in a tavern or roam the streets at midnight? Yet her genius was for fiction and lusted to feed abundantly upon the lives of men and women and the study of their ways. At last, for she was very young, oddly like Shakespeare, the poet, in her face, with the same gray eyes and rounded brows. At last, Nick Green, the actor-manager, took pity on her. She found herself with child by that gentleman, and so, who shall measure the heat and violence of the poet's heart when caught and tangled in a woman's body? Killed herself one winter's night and lies buried at some crossroads.
Ooh, that was the most vivid description in such a quick summary. You're there, you can see it, you can imagine it, and she tells this fictional woman's story quickly and heartbreakingly.
Yeah. And how she could have been more talented than Shakespeare and would never have gotten the opportunity because those things weren't allowed. The comparison of women to dancing poodles, Virginia Woolf mentions all the times that very quote is cited because it is a quote from some male writer who basically was like, women writing poetry would be like poodles dancing. It's absurd, but I guess they did it, basically, is the like, oh, wow, they can do that?
Yeah, like, wow, look at them go. That's so
They might not do it well.
Yeah.
But okay, good for you. She mentions, like, just recently in 1928, a man had written, women can't be composers. They can't compose music. It would be like a poodle dancing.
It hurts. It hurts so much. So why does Virginia Woolf invent a tragic fictional woman instead of citing a real one? Well, other than the obvious that there is no example of a real woman, there's nothing. There's nothing for her to go and to cite. So she has to imagine one. But again, there's always that underlining moment of having to give a message to the audience without saying them. Because how many of the women that she's speaking to could have been this woman, could have been Judith, had they not had the means to get to college and be allowed by their parents.
Right. How many of them know someone who was a Judith? Or, had an aunt that was a Judith, or have heard stories about somebody in their family who was a Judith. Like, it's easy to imagine, right? As long as it's somebody else.
Yep.
The fact that there is no evidence of women in history or historical writing or writing in general is a tragedy. And one thing that Virginia Woolf, pretending to be Mary Carmichael, talks about is like, well, think about what's historically happened to women who were gifted, but were not allowed to do anything with those gifts. Maybe they're called a witch. Maybe they're feared. Maybe they're mocked. Maybe they're, I was going to say burned at stakes, but there was no burning at stakes.
Yeah.
Anyway, basically, there is no place for a talented woman, at least not historically. And if they existed, there is no mention of them because men don't want to acknowledge that women can do anything because it makes them feel bigger if they are better, if the men are better than the women. All right. Let's take a sip really fast.
Now we go into the next segment, which is where Woolf discusses the lineage of female writers. Ben, or Behn, B-E-H-N, and that is the first professional writer. Austen, the Brontes, then Eliot. I actually don't know any of her work, but Alpha Bren is an English playwright, poet, prose writer, and translator from the Restoration era. She, as one of the first English women to earn her living by writing, she broke cultural barriers and served as a literary role model for a lot of the women who followed her. I mean, you can't start it and then not expect everyone else to follow your lead.
Right. And for reference, Ben was alive between 1640 to 1689, which I believe is after Elizabeth Shakespeare.
Shakespeare died in 1616. Elizabeth died about 5 years prior to that because you had James who comes in right before Shakespeare's death. And the Restoration period is to do with restoring I believe, the Catholic. And it was a bloody, bloody time. And just trying to bring that back, and it was more battles. This is like random info. The fact that I know, that's one of my fun facts. Let me confirm that Shakespeare died 1616. Shakespeare's...
Sounds about right. Because I think Elizabeth was like, I know you said 5 years. I thought it was 1608 or 1603.
It wasn't long. 1616! Bitch!
Nice.
It's one of those random facts like I know a lot about. I mean, when I studied in Cambridge, it was all Shakespeare. The entire summer was just Shakespeare.
Yeah.
And wait, so I know Shakespeare and nautical, like actual nautical logs.
Random.
Yeah, I got to handle one. It was pretty cool.
That's cool. So the argument that Woolf makes, which we'll read a little bit later, is this fact that there isn't a long lineage of female writers. I mean, Aphra Behn was born in 1640, so there's been a lot of writing before the 1600s. So why is it that she's the first one getting paid? In some ways, it's a defense of women in the sense of like, okay, they're still baby birds. They still have to stretch their wings. We haven't had opportunity.
Give us a minute. Let us do our thing. Like, stop comparing us to poodles. Maybe if we had opportunities as long as you have, we'd be even farther. The fact that women have not had the opportunity, both in the ability, as in quite literally knowing how to read and write, as long as men have, it's quite impressive what we've done in a much shorter amount of time.
Yep. I completely agree.
Another fantastic quote from Woolf includes, quote, "For we think back through our mothers if we are women. It is useless to go to the great men writers for help. However, much one may go to them for pleasure. Lamb, Brown, Thackeray, Newman, Sterne, Dickens, De Quincey, whoever it may be, never helped a woman yet, though she may have learned a few tricks of them and adapted them to her use. The weight, the pace, the stride of a man's mind are too unlike her own for her to lift anything substantial from him successfully." Damn. I mean, I hope someone reads it and is like offended by the concept of it. Like, I mean, I think we should take away that men are useless is the main message here.
She doesn't necessarily say that. No.
It's more of the idea of like their experience is just so fundamentally different from the woman's experience. I am someone who believes that it's a cop-out sometimes to say that like men and women just think differently. And, you know, I think that's like sometimes built around society. And then other times I'm like, fucking hell, they are just built differently. But ultimately, the man's experience will always be different from a woman's experience. And that is what I think she's saying through this.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of different elements to this, and I only drew out this one. Essentially, to your point, men have a certain way of saying things that doesn't work for women. We think differently. We talk about things differently. Our experience is fundamentally different. So we can't learn necessarily from men writing unless we want to write like men, but we don't. We want to write like women because we are women. And so we have to make it up as we go. We are never going to emulate a man because we are not men.
Yeah. And nor do we want to or should we. One of the ongoing internet jokes is reading off the way that men describe women. She woke up with her perky breasts ready for the day. You know, it's like, I don't want to write like men.
Nope. And we'll get a little bit more into that in a moment. I want to stop and for us to discuss the history of women writing and go, again, a little more into what Jack was saying earlier about like this tradition of women writing and why that matters.
Teeny pause, big feelings, short break.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. The MLB at Field of Dreams returns. Bryce Harper and the Philadelphia Phillies face Byron Buxton and the Minnesota Twins at the iconic Field of Dreams ballpark. The field is calling. Watch the MLB at Field of Dreams game live on Netflix Thursday, August 13th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific.
Amazon Health AI presents Painful Thoughts.
Why did I search the internet for answers to my cold sore problem? Now I'm stuck down a rabbit hole filled with images of alarmingly graphic sores in various stages of ooze. I can clear my search history, but I can never unsee that.
Don't go down the rabbit hole. Amazon Health AI gets you the right care, fast. Healthcare just got less painful.
Let's provide some context. Who are the people who have time to write? If it is people with money, then for a certain period of time, it must be the upper class, right? Because they are the only women of leisure who can afford the time to write. Most women who were writing did not have children, probably because the women who had children had to raise children. And many early female writers were or were not being paid, were criticized because their writing was merely existed to criticize men or society. It's also worth noting something that Virginia Woolf talks about that I didn't pull out here, but she also talks about the fact that women didn't have space for themselves. They don't get a study. They don't get an office. They have a drawing room that is shared with the family, and maybe they have a writing desk, and they have to find time, Jane Austen being the example, find time to write amidst all the interruptions of family life. And, in secret, if anyone's coming to visit, the family doesn't want people to know that she's writing these stories. Mm-hmm. So it's hidden in plain sight. I digress. Let me read this quote from the actual essay. This is assuming after the upper class have begun to write, and it is now the middle class woman's time, and they can find the time to write. Quote, "The middle class woman began to write, for if Pride and Prejudice matters, and Middlemarch and Villette and Wuthering Heights matter, then it matters far more than I can prove in an hour's discourse that women generally, and not merely the lonely aristocrat shut up in her country house among her folios and her flatterers, took to writing. Without those forerunners, Jane Austen and the Brontes and George Eliot could no more have written than Shakespeare could have written without Marlowe, or Marlowe without Chaucer, or Chaucer without those forgotten poets who paved the ways and tamed the natural savagery of the tongue. For masterpieces are not single and solitary births. They are the outcome of many years of thinking in common, of thinking by the body of the people, so that the experience of the mass is behind the single voice. Jane Austen should have laid a wreath upon the grave of Fanny Burney, and George Eliot done homage to the robust shade of Eliza Carter, the valiant old woman who tied a bell to her bedstead in order that she might wake early and learn Greek. All women together ought to let flowers fall upon the tomb of Aphra Behn, which is most scandalously, but rather appropriately, in Westminster Abbey, for it was she who earned them the right to speak their minds." What I think I love the most about this quote is this idea that a masterpiece does not come from a single person. It comes from a tradition that preceded them. And that the masterpiece is the culmination of many people's work that were able to bring this one to its peak. Like, if you think about that in the case of modern writing, which ones are bestsellers? Which ones do people love the most? It's not because the author is the smartest author to have ever lived.
Yeah.
It's because they're widely read. Like, they've read themselves many other people's writing. They have learned from many other people's writing. Someone tried the trope and didn't do it as well. This author is like, I like what you're doing. Let me try it a different way. And they perfected it.
And that's what writing is. I mean, we talk about it all the time on the podcast of like, there's only so many stories that can be told. And, all of writing is just kind of a rinse and repeat, right? Of everything else. The only thing that's new right now, I mean, from Woolf's perspective, and honestly, when you look at the, history of storytelling, is the women's experience and the women's perspective. And I think, that honestly deserves time to be rinsed and repeated because men have been rinsed and repeated since the beginning, the dawn of time, and carving etchings into the walls, right?
Yep.
We get to rinse and repeat as well. And there's the phrase of you only write what you know. And to think that there is an entire gender out there that hasn't been documented for hundreds and hundreds and arguably thousands of years. I mean, you go to Greek mythology, there are not enough stories. There are hardly any stories about the women, and not goddesses, like the actual women of the time.
Yep.
And there's so much to be caught up on, and it's just still such a new experience that men cannot capture.
Right. I mean, no one wants me to write a story about men. I mean, I don't want to write a story about men.
If you guys really knew Amy, you really don't want her to write a story about men.
No. No. And as we've discussed, women who write about men are writing the version of men they want, not always the actual version of men that exists, because they don't live the male experience, right?
Yeah.
Likewise, a man does not understand what happens when two women are in a room alone. Men don't know how to write a woman.
They don't. They really don't. It's sad, but it's true.
And that's part of Virginia Woolf's ending argument. And it's not that she's trying to disregard men. She's not trying to invalidate men and their writing. What she's saying is, if women were the only writers and we wrote about men, you would be upset because we would get it wrong. The same is true here of us. You as men trying to write women don't understand female friendship, don't understand the type of conversations we have, don't understand the subtleties of female interaction. We should have the opportunity to express that.
And that's a sentiment that we're starting here with women and continues on with women of color, women of trans women, we're starting here. The ripple effects, the rippling of that need continues, and it's beyond than just this. Just want to acknowledge.
Yeah, exactly. That I don't know that I could, and I don't know that I should write a story with a protagonist from a culture not my own. Because what do I know?
Yep.
All the research in the world will not help me create an authentic character that honors that experience.
I mean, just look at Steven Spielberg's The Color Purple movie. It's a great example of a story that deserves to be told, but should this man have done it? Probably not.
No. So to get at this idea that women should be writing about themselves, I want to read one of my favorite quotes from chapter 5, which is Chloe liked Olivia. Quote, Chloe liked Olivia, I read. And then it struck me how immense a change was there. Chloe liked Olivia, perhaps for the first time in literature. Cleopatra did not like Octavia, and how completely Antony and Cleopatra would have been altered had she done so. As it is, I thought, letting my mind, I am afraid, wander a little from life's adventure, the whole thing is simplified, conventionalized, if one dared say it, absurdly. Cleopatra's only feeling about Octavia is one of jealousy. Is she taller than I am? How does she do her hair? The play perhaps required no more. But how interesting it would have been if the relationship between the two women had been more complicated. All these relationships between women, I thought, rapidly recalling the splendid gallery of fictitious women, are too simple. So much has been left out, unattempted, and I tried to remember any case in the course of my reading where two women are represented as friends. There is an attempt at it in Diana of the Crossways. They are confidants, of course, in Racine and Greek tragedies. They are now and then mothers and daughters. But almost without exception, they are shown in their relation to men. It was strange to think that all the great women of fiction were, until Jane Austen's day, not only seen by the other sex, but seen only in relation to the other sex. Ugh, that still gives me chills.
There's another part where she talks about how women don't like women. And like she flat out says, like, women don't like women. And you're just like, damn, Virginia, I hate to tell you this, but like it doesn't change in 100 years.
Yeah. And another thing that she goes on to say is like the presence of women as characters in fiction written by men is always seen through the lens of men's desire or emotion or power. Like they are accessories to the male experience. If the poet's in love, it's a ballad. If the poet's mad because he was scorned by his ex-lover, it's, she is a monster. In novels, the women are either to amplify the men's success or the villain to the man's success. It's never about like the woman's experience and what the woman wants. It's always about how does the male experience the female.
I found one of the quotes, like I was just referencing, and I'm hoping I can find the other one. But the quote is, and again, I am reminded by dipping into newspapers and novels and biographies that when a woman speaks to a woman, she should have something very unpleasant up her sleeve. Women are hard on women. Women dislike women. But aren't you sick to death of the word? I can assure you I am. Let us agree then that a paper read by a woman to women should end with something particularly disagreeable, which is again fucking hilarious, which was like, well, let's just end on hating something else. Or let's just end on hating. I feel like there's also this realization that we have always been pitted against each other. Who is going to get the man that has the most money? Because not out of jealousy, but because we would love to survive. Not out of like kind of any vindictiveness, but because we would like to just have a husband that doesn't hurt us. Isn't that the dream?
It's no surprise that women have always competed against one another, not only because of society, but those are the stories men wrote because it made them feel good about themselves. And so our media has taught us to compete with one another.
There's so many amazing one-liners that she has, and maybe one day I'll put it all in like one cohesive thought that I'm trying to think, because she has very cohesive thoughts. But she tells the young women who are listening to this speech saying, quote, I should implore you to remember your responsibilities, to be higher, more spiritual. I should remind you how much depends upon you and what an influence you can exert upon the future. But those exhortations can safely, I think, be left to the other sex, who will put them, and indeed have put them, with far greater eloquence than I can compass. And I find this, and again, maybe one day I'll put the various thoughts into one sentence, because it never felt more relevant than today, where so many women knock down romance and romanticy. And it's just one of those things where Virginia Woolf and our foremothers before her didn't fucking fight to write, to just do what was never done before. And that is write and be able to live off of that writing. To then crap upon other women's creations where they're actually able to make that living and do the thing that we have only not even 100 years ago have been able to actually do. Virginia Woolf wasn't able to do this unless she had her aunt's inheritance. It's such a new concept to be able to survive off of your own writing that it is, to me, literary blasphemy to shit on women like that.
Completely agree. And it's only through, honestly, education that we're going to understand the privilege that we have. I only learned within the last year women didn't have credit cards till the 70s, that they couldn't open bank accounts without their husband or their father. That shit's crazy. They couldn't take out a mortgage. They couldn't have loans without a man to sign with them. The world we live in right now is shit in most ways. However, we are in such a better place than the women of 100 years ago, of women 50 years ago. And so, again, let us not shit on women. Like Jack says, we haven't been able to do these things for very long.
Yeah.
We're still learning. Men have a millennia, if not more, head start on us. And so we should celebrate women who are trying. We should encourage women to try. And this makes me go back to my own therapy session from earlier today. Do not attack mediocrity. We all have to learn in order to become good. And so when you shit on someone because you don't like the writing, you don't think they did a good job, that's their first attempt of hopefully many. Allow that person to learn.
We didn't even cover one of the sections in Room of One's Own, she reads another woman's poetry and work and says, like, it was okay. Then she makes a point about why it was so important that it was even written.
Mm-hmm.
That she could go to the library and find it, that it was even there and that it even existed. And maybe with some time, this author will become a great author, but, you don't have to, it's just like all creation is worth it,
Yeah, because if nothing else, it paves the way for something else that needs to happen, right?
Yep.
When we write, when we put our work out into the world as women, we are uplifting our sisters now and our sisters of the future.
And there's so much that needs to be done. We are nowhere near. We are only 2 steps away from where Virginia Woolf was. Let's make it a dozen more before our daughters go and have to face this shit.
All right. On that happy note,
we'll be back for more next time.
Yeah, next week we're going to do a more advanced analysis. Today we kind of gave you very high-level overview. It's so much more rich than what we covered in this hour. I highly recommend you go listen. It is worth your time.
You can find it online for free. You can listen to it on Libby for free. Yep. It is available to you.
Yep.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Academia Unlocked with BookTok for BookTok with Jack and Amy.
If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps other readers find us. And of course, we'd love to hear what you thought of today's episode. Share your comments through our forum at booktalkforbooktalk.com, and we might feature your feedback in a future mini episode or a Patreon exclusive episode.
For merch and more ways to support the show, head to booktalkforbooktalk.com. You can also follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at the handle BookTok for BookTok. Bye.
Bye.
It's basically August, which means it's basically fall. And I am basically thinking about my entire autumn wardrobe.
But it's not going to be a basic wardrobe.
No. It's going to have absolute amazing classic staples from Quince that's going to have ultra soft organic cotton, premium cashmere sweaters. It's a whole vision I have for myself.
The best thing about Quince is you can get those timeless staples at 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
Quince also has, get ready for this, premium stretch denim starting at just $50. I mean, I'm telling you guys, like, it's the perfect fit. It has structure to it, and it also has exactly what you would expect from a luxury designer brand, but it's only $50.
And they're so affordable because they work directly with ethical factories and cut out middlemen. So basically, you're paying for quality, not brand markup.
And it's not just apparel. Quince also brings that same everyday elevation to everything they offer, from hotel quality bedding and bath to kitchen staples and thoughtfully designed furniture.
Upgrade your everyday. Download the Quince app for app-exclusive offers or go to quince.com/booktalk.
Get free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada and the UK too.
That's QUINCE.com/booktalk. BOOKTALK.
There will be absolutely no gatekeeping here. We need to tell you about Rebel, the one place where you can get some incredible brand names for up to 70% off.
The thing about Rebel is you don't have to choose between the brand you want versus the price you want. You get both. It isn't a knockoff. It's a real product just priced the way it actually should be.
Rebel offers so many incredible products that I have spent the last, I'd say, 20 minutes just scrolling, knowing that I can shop from brands like Ninja, KitchenAid, and even Drybar. My hair is going to look good.
The most important thing is it's not a static sale. There are new finds dropping constantly. And once the inventory's out, it's out.
You got to get on it, people.
Your next favorite find is waiting at FromRebel.com. That's FROMREBEL.com.
Top brands in home, baby, and outdoor. Up to 70% off. Go check it out before it's gone.